There we go. There we go. There we go. All right, y'all. How we doing? I made it to work on time. And let me. Hello, mademoiselle. Hello, happy belated Mother's Day. There you go. All right. You know, I gotta drop the link because I don't know if Mr. Michaels is over there. Miss Sarah, how we doing? How we doing? Hello, hello, hello. Y'all, talk among yourselves for a second. Let me get into my media assets. Where's my background? There we go. I gotta get into this media background real fast. And upload something. I gotta do that. And then 2 more and I'll be ready for you. 2 more and I will be ready for my terabytes. 1 more. 1 more. There we go. There we go. Lady Autumn, how are you, my dear? Look at you, giving Empress energy, baby. Just luxuriating, honey. Okay. How are you, love? You're on mute, baby. I can't hear you.
Okay.
There you go. There you go. We can hear you now, babes.
Yeah, I'm doing good. I'm doing
Yeah.
good. I'm doing good. Yeah,
Good.
Yeah, Mother's Day for me was quiet. I actually stayed home. I thought my son, my middle boy, he said he was gonna take me out, but you know, he got caught up. So he sent me a little couple dollars. It said Happy Mother's Day. You know, we'll try it again some other time, which was fine. I just stayed home and chilled. It was a chill day for me. So I ain't really do nothing much.
I was busy. I had a lot of things going on, and then I had to run over to the south side, you know, and see Modea.
Okay.
You know, had to see Modea and what have you, you know, in my I don't know if I shared this, but you know, my father, who is actually my stepfather, but I call him my father. They went 2 weeks ago. They went to Albuquerque for a vacation, and the second day there, my father got a stroke.
Oh.
So my mom has been dealing with that. You know, she handled it. She handled it, and it's by her quick thinking that the man is doing what he's doing already because he's doing okay.
Okay.
He's doing okay. Yeah, she was able to get him. She was able to get him to the hospital in what they call that golden hour. And you know, I was there with my brother. And you know, we did the best. Yeah, thank you, Lady Sarah. Yeah.
So you enjoyed her. You enjoyed her?
One more time.
I said, did you enjoy her?
Oh yeah.
Good.
Oh yeah. You know, well, the thing is that like my mom is a very formidable woman and she can handle a lot. You know, she can handle like she's a woman, you know, she can handle a lot. Thing is though, is that just because she can handle it does not mean that the capacity does not mean obligation. Just because you can handle it doesn't mean that you're supposed to. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And you know, I saw my stretching, and I was like, you know, you ain't got to. You know, you got kids over here. You know, we got life experiences, and you know, we can handle shit. But my mom, you know, and listen, even at this big age, I still call my mother mommy. So does my brother.
Me too.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So and as long as she draws breath, she's always going to be mommy. You know what I'm saying? I don't do the mother. You know, I don't. Yeah. But I say all that to say this. You know, we had a little conversation today. I said, you know what, mommy, you are definitely going to have to start giving your kids some of the benefit of the doubt because we do have life experience. and we do, and you know, and I know that can't nobody do it better than you, and what have you. But at the end of the day, at the end of the day, you got to pull back. You got to
Yeah.
pull back, because for her micromanaging us, I mean, Autumn, it was to a degree like, you know, she's micromanaging how we do the barbecue grill. Lady, if you don't go into that, if you don't go in that house, you know, if you don't go in that house, shit, we know how to do arson. Shit, we were raised on the South Side. Leave us alone. We know how to do this. You know, hold on, baby. I just want to, you know what, girl? I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna be honest with you. Hold on. Hold on. Mr. Stevens up here. Let me get him up here.
Okay,
Hey,
good,
Hello.
good.
hello,
There
sweetie.
you go.
There
How
we go.
you?
There we go.
I'm
Tonight,
fine.
tonight's what I want to talk about tonight is going to be, it has a tendency to be heavy. And you know, I wanted to get some energy. I wanted to clear the energy up here because I want to remain focused. You know, so it's not going to be easy, but we're going to do this because of the timing and all that stuff. So I wanted to clear some of the stagnant energy out. But Michael, Miss Autumn was saying that her Mother's Day was low key. How was your Mother's Day?
Well, it was low key. It was low key like hers. I just gave my mother a card, and that's about it because I'm on a limited income, and I figure that if I can give her a card, if not at most flowers, I'm good. But yeah, it was low key. I'll say that she went to the graveyard because my grandmother had passed away in 2011, and this is where it gets funny, Miss Ronnie. So the graveyard that she's buried at, I am scared to go there because there's this big ass mausoleum that scares the hell out of me, and I can't look at it. It looks scary. So I think grandma knows, she understands how I feel in spirit, but it's just like, yeah, I can't go there. I just can't go there. I have a fear of graveyards, so you know.
See, you want to know something? I mean, and that is, you know what? That's that. I mean, honestly, because I talk a lot of shit, but I'm not. Listen, you know, I could do a graveyard before I can do like a building. You know, like a building that's supposed to have. Listen, let me tell you. So, and we'll get off this, and then we'll get into tonight's thing because I did start later tonight because I really needed time to nail down what I wanted to nail down. You know what I'm saying? Because, like I said, subject matter is going to be a little heavy. It ain't meant to be really heavy. I'm hoping that it'll open up some healing, and that's why, you know, I had to take my time with this. But I'm gonna tell you. So y'all know that you know, I do hair, but I also supplement my income working at one of the stadiums here in Chicago. I work at Wrigley. Okay, I work at Wrigley. I'm a bartender over at Wrigley. And so with that, you know, we're like sent like all over, you know, that stadium. That is the one thing about Wrigley that I'm amazed by, is that there's no piece of real estate that they do not utilize, that they do not know how to make money off of. And to that, I applaud them. You know, they got, you know, they you know, it gives me a job. I mean, I'll be real honest with you all, you know, after the COVID, it's like people got real stupid, and it's showing. You know, that's all I'm gonna say, that it's showing, and it wears me down. And you know, between what I do at Wrigley and then the things that I got going on with Christopher, you know, that's come, the readings have been few and far between, because if my energy is not optimum, I'm not coming on here and giving you all bullshit readings. I got to be an optimum when I do that, but I digress. So with all that, see, a graveyard is wide open. I'm gonna tell you this right now. I have found they have not been malevolent energies, but I've heard from several people that stadium is not all that it appears to be, and that would be from people that you know, that work there. You know what I'm saying? Not everybody would feel all that. Just those of us that work there. So yeah, so it's you know, it's wild. So Like I said, I can do a graveyard, but I can't do a building that's got paranormal activity or something like that, you know. And it used to be when I was a kid, like those gothic mansions at the end of the block were supposed to be your haunted houses. Now it's asylums. Now it's schools. It's abandoned hotel. Anywhere that there's a collective of the energy, you know, is going to bound to be something that is going to be active. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Hold on, wait a minute. Lady Sarah going to start already. There she go. Yep. God knows how people will be if COVID, the sequel. Yep. And you know what she's talking about? She's talking about that Hunter virus. So there we go. But y'all, let me get you guys down. It's always wonderful to see everybody. And you know, and I'm gonna keep pushing the link down so that if you guys want to say anything, you all let me know. All right. Okay. So wait a minute. Where's my media assets? Here we go. Let me see if I can do it. All right. Wait, I got one more. Here we go. So yesterday was the day that we celebrate Mo Diaz. All right. And so you heard me talk a little bit about that. And it was lovely. You know, it was lovely. And I'm very lucky. My mother is still with me. And not only that, though, but the things that we had to work out, we've worked out so that now we can actually enjoy each other without any kind of conflicts. But I realized that that's not the way a lot of my friends. That's not the situation for a lot of my friends. Some of my friends, some of their mothers have transitioned and they're on the other side. Some of my friends, even as grown adults, there is friction between the relationship between them and their mothers. And for me, I'm very sensitive to that because I know how that friction can feel. And I'm just grateful that the healing occurred and I still have time to be with this woman. All right. And celebrate her the way she should be celebrated and do that from my heart and not obligation. So we're going to go in. I heard this said one time, and it says that our mothers are our first karma. And as I'm getting older, I get the more I understand what that really means. Because before we understood love, before we understood relationships, before we even understood ourselves, we understood her energy. And depending on whether that energy was healed or wounded, it shaped how we learned how to love. It shaped how we learned how to trust, how to receive, how to protect ourselves, and even how we see our own worth. That was contingent on her energy. Yesterday was Mother's Day. So today I want to talk about the divine feminine in both forms, the healed and the wounded version, because every feminine archetype can nurture, and every feminine archetype can wound when the pain goes unhealed. So yesterday, I was like, I knew I was going to come live and I was trying to do some content. So I posted some things up. So there are 3 cards in the tarot that exemplified Mother's Day. The first one, right here, the Empress, right here. This is the healed mother. The Empress, the healed Empress, she creates emotional safety. She nurtures without controlling. She protects without suffocating. She loves without making the child responsible for her happiness. But like the healed Empress would say, you are allowed to become your own person. And the healed Empress, she will teach you your self-worth. She will teach you softness. She will teach you creativity, emotional security, healthy attachment. And a child that is raised by the healed Empress energy grows up feeling, that child grows up feeling, I deserve love without performing for it. That's the healed Empress. That's the healed Empress, y'all. And the reason why I started late was because I had to do some things, and we're going to get into the shadow of what it feels like for this Empress when she's not healed. Okay. When the Empress is wounded, love can become emotionally consuming. Protection becomes control. Care becomes possession. Nurturing becomes guilt and emotional dependency. So like the wound that the Shadow Empress gives to the child is, if I'm not needed, I'm not loved. The best, this took me a minute. I looked for some pop culture references about the wounded Empress and relationship with her child. So some of these examples, they may be silly, but these are what they are. All right. So this wounded Empress, with what I said about how she would be controlling over the child. The best example of that, and you all got to stay with me, one of the best examples of that, you all remember Psycho? Norman Bates' mama. That wounded Empress wounded that child to become enmeshed with her identity. So for Norman Bates' mother, we never knew what his mother's name was. Love became an emotional enmeshment and psychological control, even to the point, even after death. You know, she was a very domineering mother, you know, Norman Bates' mom. And her possessive love and like her moral rigidity, you know, it fucked up his psyche, you know, and then it spawned that infamous mother persona that drove Norman to do the shit that he did. So this is like the byproduct of the wounded Empress, what it can do to the child. We got two more. Now, I don't know if this is pretty much this is pretty much an adult conversation, but I don't know if you all saw that movie from Disney, Tangled, Gothel. This is the mother from Tangled. And Gothel, she used fear, she used guilt, and she used dependency disguised as protection. And this mother right here concealed her selfishness beneath this disguise of maternal affection and emotional manipulation. This woman right here made Disney's one of Disney's most psychologically complex villain. Disney went deep on this one. Here's something that maybe a little bit more within our lane. We got Cersei Lannister. Cersei from the Game of Thrones. This was maternal love fused with power and attachment and emotional domination. You know, she had a secret incestuous relationship with her twin brother Jaime. And those children, you know, she passed the children that she had with her brother off as the king's children. You know, following her husband's death, his name was Robert, Cersei maneuvered to keep her son Joffrey on the Iron Throne to rule, you know, as her offspring. So when we talk about the wounded Empress, the impact that the Empress has on her child is that the child grows up feeling guilty for independence, is struggling for boundaries, and that child is emotionally fused. You know, is emotionally fused and is always afraid of disappointing people. You know, with the wounded Empress, her children often feel that love feels tied to obligation. If you're feeling anything by this, chances are you were raised by a wounded Empress. And this right here, and before I go any fucking further, let me say this. I wanted to come on live and I wanted to talk about this, but this is not to accuse anybody of anything. I wanted to come on here so that you all could recognize patterns. And from there, help. If you're feeling anything, maybe this would help facilitate in your healing. Because for the wounded Empress, the children of the wounded Empress, the healing begins when her child understands that you are allowed to exist outside of someone else's emotional needs. Love should not cost you your identity. Love should not cost you your identity. We don't know what would have happened to Norman had his mother not been wounded. Would Joffrey be the monster that he was? You know, if he had another mother other than Cersei? And poor Rapunzel, you know, how many years did she spend trying to appease her mother every way she knew how? So we're going to move on. All right, we're going to move on. Because the next mother in the tarot would be Her Majesty, the Queen of Cups. All right. Now, this is the healed mother. This is the healed Queen of Cups. The healed Queen of Cups, she teaches emotional intelligence. She listens to you. She comforts you. She allows emotions to exist without shame. This mother creates emotional safety instead of emotional confusion. And the healed version of the Queen of Cups says, your feelings matter. Your feelings are valid. Her Majesty right here, when she's healed, she's going to teach her children empathy. She's going to teach her children emotional honesty and intuition. She teaches her children compassion. She teaches her children to be vulnerable without fear. And a child that is raised by a healed Queen of Cups energy learns that you can feel deeply without losing yourself. Okay? But when Her Majesty is wounded, the Queen of Cups struggles to regulate emotions. And love becomes unpredictable. Affection is mixed with emotional instability. And the child becomes the emotional caretaker. The wound that the child suffers is the child walks around thinking that my emotions are dangerous, so I've got to manage everybody else's. Now, the next person that I'm going to bring up is Monique. And this is from her Academy Award, her Academy Award portrayal in Precious. Her name was Mary. And Mary represents the Shadow Queen of Cups at her most wounded and her most emotionally destructive. This is what happens when deep emotional pain turns bitter and toxic. When Her Majesty's deep emotional pain is unresolved and abusive. And instead of nurturing emotions, she weaponizes them. Instead of protecting her child, she projects rage and shame and jealousy and disappointment into the child. The Shadow Queen of Cups, her love is unstable. One moment emotionally dependent, the next moment cruel and humiliating and emotionally violent. The Shadow Queen of Cups struggles with emotional regulation. Pain spills everywhere. And her child becomes an emotional dumping ground for the mother's unresolved trauma. Mary creates an environment where guilt becomes control, where emotional chaos becomes normal, and the child learns survival through emotional hypervigilance. The wound that her child passes on is, I must shrink myself emotionally in order to survive. The wounded Queen of Cups, her child is raised under the energy that often that fear. Her child fears emotional expression. Her child feels responsible for everybody else's moods. And her child will struggle with self-worth and accept emotional abuse as normal. And carries deep shame that never belonged to them. Let me know in the chat if anybody saw Precious. I saw it one time. Well, I said I saw it one time. I saw it twice actually, and walked away the second time knowing that one time was all you needed. Let me know in the chat if y'all saw Precious. But the way her child, the wounded Queen of Cups, the way her child heals from this wound is when the child begins to realize that someone else's pain was projected onto me, and it was never my identity. And to the children of the wounded Queen of Cups, I say to you right now, you are not the abuse you survived. You are not the emotional weight somebody else refused to heal. Ooh, shit, I almost lost it. Fuck. Yep. Being around the Shadow Queen of Cups is like living in an emotional minefield. Sarah, I couldn't said it better myself. And Miss Autumn, yep, you did. You know what, Sarah? You know what, Sarah? That movie is not for the weak. I'm just going to say that movie is not for the weak. And yes, Miss Yvette, yes. And wait a minute, and Miss Yvette, and wait a minute. Talking about Precious, knowing that you're an educator, I could only imagine how empathetic you must, what that must have been like in the theater watching that, because that could have been any of your children in that classroom at any time. So yeah, I could only imagine how hard it was to watch. Another example, because I mean, listen, I think I pretty much got it together with this one, but I mean, but if we got to do it, we're going to do it. Here we go. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Wait a minute. No. Get her off. It was Joan Crawford, Mommy Dearest. Where is she? Oh, there she go. Yep. Miss Joan Crawford. According to Christina Crawford's biography, Mommy Dearest, she writes, and I'm just summarizing right now, that living with Joan Crawford, her affection was mixed with fear and instability and emotional unpredictability. Christina Crawford, she wrote that her relationship with her mother was abusive. As an adopted daughter, Christina, she became both infamous and iconic for writing the emotional intensity of Mommy Dearest. For Christina to walk out on a limb and write that biography in all of its detail. At the time that Christina wrote that book, Joan Crawford, though she was not in movies, she was regarded as Hollywood, Hollywood royalty. And at that time, it's not the time that we're living in right now with TMZ and all of that. Joan was still untouchable. She was an Academy Award winning actress. She was an actress that came up through the studio system, so she was regarded as Hollywood royalty. But see, what we find out later was all of that was manufactured. These people were highly flawed individuals, and they were only stylized because they were the face of the studio, and the studio had to protect its commodities. And its commodity was its reputation. So it may very well been that everyone in the studio knew what was going on with Christina Crawford and her adopted brother under Joan Crawford's roof. But as long as it didn't come out in the tabloids, everything was fine. And that's what that poor woman, Christina Crawford, had to live with. And again, this is alleged because I wasn't there. Christina's got her view on it, so we got to do what we got to do over here, But the thing is that for the child that was raised by the wounded Queen of Cups, her child grows up hyper aware of moods. the child grows up emotionally anxious and afraid of conflict, and her child attracts emotionally unavailable people. Her child is exhausted from caretaking others emotionally. But to the children of the Queen of Cups, your healing starts when you all realize that you are not responsible for regulating everybody else's emotions, and you deserve emotional peace as well. Let me take a minute. How we doing? How we doing, people? How are we doing? Let me see what wait, Miss Autumn said. Seeing that movie only could take, yeah. Precious was not easy. No. Precious was not easy. And for me, when I think about Precious, for me, the hardest part was to see Precious get respect or get affection, and to see how she was so happy to do it, and then to know that she had to go back to that abuse. That was particularly devastating. Y'all, we only got one more. And you know, thank you all for hanging out with me. We only got one more. And that one right here is Her Majesty, the Queen of Pentacles. Her Majesty, when she is healed, she creates stability. Her Majesty provides safety without making love transactional. This mother, this Queen of Pentacles, teaches her children consistency. She teaches her children responsibility and groundedness. She teaches her children a healthy work ethic, security without pressure. The healed Queen of Pentacles says to her children, you are valuable even when you're resting. A child raised by a healed Queen of Pentacles energy feels, that child feels that I am supported, I am protected, and I am safe to fail sometimes. When Her Majesty is wounded, she loves through performance. The wounded Queen of Pentacles ties love to achievement. Okay? For the child, the child starts to learn that success becomes survival. That image becomes the identity, and that worth becomes performance. The child learns that in the morning, you better be pissing out excellence. That is what the child of a wounded Queen of Pentacles, that's what they absorb. The wound that child grows up with from a wounded Queen of Pentacles is, I am only lovable when I achieve. I don't know if y'all remember the Gilmore Girls. I wasn't a big fan, but the thing is that I remember the Gilmore Girls, and the mother, her name was Emily Gilmore. She was very much about that. she was loved wrapped up in standards and expectations and emotional pressure. Emily Gilmore, she epitomized that polished world of high society. She was educated, at Smith's College, and she managed a household. Her household was all these standards, and her calendar was filled with like all of these social obligations. Her life revolved around her husband Richard and her involvement with all of these civic organizations, and then with her daughter Lorelai. Emily's relationship with her daughter, it was so toxic that Lorelai, she left at 16 to raise her own daughter independently. And that was the show's defining emotional tension, Oh yeah, okay. So wait a minute. Yvette, let me know. Wait a minute. Am I relating to that? Did I do that correctly? Wait a minute. I think I got my confirmation. Yeah, Sarah said help. I got bingo and I wasn't even okay. Okay. So y'all, am I hitting listen, I worked hard on this. Am I hitting these cylinders correctly? Let me know in the chat if I'm hitting this shit correctly, all right? Because I'm not gonna lie to y'all, I was sweating a little bit. The next mother, the wounded Queen of Pentacles, that the pop reference that I was able to find. I don't know who watched Sex in the City, but there she is, Miss Bunny McDougal. Good old Bunny. Bunny McDougal represented that old money. She was the polished Queen of Pentacles energy, where the image and the status and tradition mattered more than emotional freedom. Bunny came from wealth. She came from class. She came from like social power, and everything was about appearances and reputation and maintaining a certain standard on the surface. On the surface, she looked elegant. She was refined and she was put together, but underneath that was control. And she constantly inserted herself into her sons Trey and Charlotte's marriage, undermining Charlotte while keeping Trey emotionally dependent on her. And that was pure Shadow Queen of Pentacles energy, providing security and status while quietly controlling people through expectation, through image, through money, through family traditions. Her love was tied to behaving correctly and fitting the family image and maintaining appearances and staying inside the role that was chosen for you. The emotional connection there, there was connection, but it came with pressure attached to it. And the child that was raised under this energy learns, I'm accepted when I fit the image. And over time, that child, it created an adult who struggles to know who they were outside of success, outside of approval, outside of performance. The child of the wounded Queen of Pentacles grows up overworking for validation. Her wounded children have this feeling of guilt when they're resting, and they're terrified of failure. They tie their self-worth to productivity. Lorelai Gilmore and Trey McDougal were the children of these wounded Queen of Pentacles. And if they were real and I was able to speak to them, I would like to sit there and say that, Lorelei, Trey, your existence alone has value. You do not have to perform constantly to deserve to feel loved. You don't. The reality of all of this is that the reality of the wounded feminine is this. Most wounded mothers were once wounded daughters. And that's why I wanted to have this conversation. This conversation was not about blaming. It was not about assigning blame or hatred or anything of that nature. It was about inherited emotional patterns. This conversation is supposed to be about generational trauma, pain that travels through generations until somebody becomes conscious enough to say, I'm going to stop carrying this bullshit forward. This right here is going to stop with me. The healing starts when you all stop asking yourself, why wasn't I enough? And start asking, what pain was living in the room before I even arrived? I wanted to have this conversation this evening because awareness is what's going to help break the repetition. And once you can name your wound, you can stop unconsciously building your whole life around it. Woo, I'm cooking tonight. So yes, our mothers may be our first karma. Not because they were perfect, not because they were evil, but because they were often our first experience of love, of pain, of nurturing, of fear, of attachment, of abandonment, of safety, of emotional conditioning. And like I said before a few seconds ago, the healing begins the moment you decide that this pattern is going to end with me. So tonight, before I let you all go, before I dismiss class, I want to bring us back to center. Because this conversation was never about blaming anybody. Like I said before, this conversation was about understanding patterns. And some of us were raised by love that was healed. And some of us were raised by love that was still hurting. And both of those things can shape a child. But here's what I need you to hear. At the end of the day, what you experienced was real. At the end of the day, what you experienced was real, but it is not your identity. You are not the pain you came from. You are not the emotional weight somebody else didn't know how to carry. And most importantly, you are not stuck repeating anything that you now have awareness of. Because awareness is where the healing is going to start. Not perfection. Not forgiveness on command, but just awareness. So if anything in this live touched you, I want you to take a breath, and I want you to come back into yourself for just a moment. You are here right now, and you made it here. And you get to choose what you carry forward. And maybe the real hearing is this, that you can understand where you came from without letting it decide where you're going. And from that space, you are allowed to build something new, something softer, something freer, and something that finally feels like you. Y'all, I made it. Y'all, I made it. Good. Whatever you have to do, Sarah. Whatever you have to do. Yeah, baby, I'm okay. I just, you know what, darling? How do I want to say this? I had a traditional Mother's Day. And on my way home, I saw people on the train that did not. And I went to sleep with that. And, you know, I had to work today. You know, I got up. Y'all saw I did a reading today. And and all of the stuff that I was talking about was on my mind. And it's not until I do text to talk. I do talk to text, and then I refine it. But until I actually verbalize it, you know, I'm reading it, but then like the sound of my voice changes the energy about it, if that makes any sense. And then you know, and then it's like the feelings that were coming out, they're now coming out, you know, right here, you know. So yeah, no, baby, I am fine. Thank you. Yeah, I'm fine. It just, you know, uh, uh, I guess you might say, you know, you know, I got that empathic thing, you know, and I was feeling people, you know, that were probably feeling what I was saying, and that's, you know, it took my breath away a little bit. I'm throwing down the link. If anybody wants to come up, if they want to contribute anything, please feel free. Let me know. Let me know how I did. You know, let me know if yeah, that one took a lot out of me. Shit, that one was like doing readings. Shit. But yeah, Miss Yvette, she's like, yeah, thank you so much for sharing this, Ronnie. I really appreciate everything. Oh, good. I'm glad I'm glad. I'm glad. I'm glad. I'm glad. I'm glad. Yeah. Oh, we talking about Bunny McDoodle? Yes. I love how she learned how to knock before she went. Jesus. Yeah, but girl, you know what? That I mean, you know, you can't. I mean, but you know, and the thing is that Bunny, but I mean, Bunny, you don't have to have money to be Bunny McDougal, because that shit happens in so many different families, right? So yes, Miss Autumn, speak to me, love. You're mute, baby. I can't hear you. You're muted.
I'm sorry.
There you go,
This
baby.
tonight was a deep one. It was deep. It was really
Yeah.
deep. I can actually say I enjoyed it. I'm glad that me and my mom are on better terms, but I could relate with a lot of what you said. Um, and I came to a place of forgiveness because I'm not gonna lie on my parents and said I had a horrible childhood, but I did notice that my mother tried to live her dreams through me. And like I guess the things that she wanted to do, when I didn't do those things, like I was afforded a whole lot of opportunities growing up. And when I chose to go the other direction, and a lot of times it was the wrong direction. She became not only disappointed, but she also became very mean to me. And I understood it more once I got an adult. I didn't act that way towards my children, but I looked at it as a point of um I raised you. I grew up in a two-parent household. Um, and I went to music school. I learned how to play the piano, the clarinet, the harp, and I mean, like you name it, I was in it, I was involved. And when I chose not to stick with those things, that's when I had hell to pay. And I don't think that she and like had it is like since you didn't further those extracurricular activities and make something out of yourself, that I'm gonna treat you mean. I think it came from a place where um the way I was born, um how my father, my biological father, was married. And um my father, he didn't deny me. Um but he was still married nonetheless. And my father lost his marriage because of me. And my dad was much older than my mom. She was a teenage mom. She had me like at 17 or something. And my dad was 27 years old. My dad had 10 years on my mom.
Autumn,
So
Autumn, Autumn, Autumn. I don't mean to stop you right now, but I need you to realize you said something. And I don't even know if you realize it.
wow.
And you said that your father lost his marriage because of you. Your father lost his marriage because of him. You understand, madam, that you are a child. You understand that, don't you?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And the thing is, Autumn, is that I'm very sensitive to verbiage. And the thing is, Mama, is that if you could okay, if you can disengage that, the reason why you said that was because you made an emotional contract with that. And that contract has got to be voided. Your father lost that marriage because of the choices that your father chose to make as a child, especially as a female child. You don't have that power, baby. You don't have that power to disintegrate somebody's marriage. You were a female Black child. In society, you have no power. You cannot take that. You cannot carry that no more, Autumn. And that's from me to you. You got to do it. You got to do what you got to do with this. But the thing is that cannot be a part of your story, baby, because that was not your responsibility. And that's all I'm saying, Mama. That's all I'm saying. But continue, baby. What were you saying? So you were going on.
Yeah, I'm good with it. One thing I can say, he never denied me. I was a part of my dad's life from a little girl, you know, all the way up till I was grown. God rest his soul. He's no longer with us anymore. My stepfather actually raised me, but I was, you know, involved in my biological father's his life. And but you know, my mom she had a whole lot of upsets and disappointments with men and stuff like that. And I think by me being the oldest and her putting so much time and effort into me, and when, you know, like I said, when I went to the left, um, even no, I can go back further. I just really think a lot of her being mean and nasty to me came from how I was conceived, um, and the outcome from that. In her mind, young, thinking that her and my dad was going to be something, and that didn't happen. The only thing came out of that was me. But you know, my stepdad, you know, he wasn't the kindest to her, but he loved us. And recently, when I say recently, within the past year, you know, she always says little, you know, nasty comments and things that hurt, that cut real deep. And she made a statement to my daughter and said, I don't know why I treat y'all, which is me and my children, because I have other siblings and they have children as well. But she treats us the hardest. And she says the nasty things to us to make us feel beneath and stuff like that. And she said it out loud. Like, I don't know why I do that. And, you know, I'm glad we're better now. This Mother's Day, I felt, you know, after I heard everybody talk about their mom, I did get a chance, you know, I went past to see my mom. I spent time with her on Saturday. But I mean, I'm okay with it now, you know what I'm saying? It doesn't bother me as bad as it used to. But, you know, tonight it just kind of, you know, reminded me of, you know, how my mom was and the place that it came from. And I'm just grateful that we passed that, you know, that I can say a lot of things I will still carry because it was traumatic, you know. But we're past that now. And like you said in the very beginning, you know, time is just so short. And I'm grateful to have my mommy. And when I talked to her, I got filled up because I know in her, a part of her wanted me to be more than what I am today. And not to say that I'm such a horrible person, but it
Um,
took me, it
I'm
took
gonna,
me
I'm
to,
gonna show, I want to throw something on the screen. I want to throw something on the screen. Do you see that man?
yes.
Okay, his name is Kahil Gibran. All right, and he wrote this book. He wrote this book called The Prophet. And
Yeah.
this is what he wrote. Oh God, I can't. I don't know if I can make this make it bigger or not. The point is that he wrote this book. It's called The Prophet, and there's this one page. It's called on children. And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but there's a line, and it said, "Our children come through us. They come through us, but they are not of us." Did you catch that?
Yes, I did.
You came through your mother, but you are a divine expression, and your mom was simply holding that. And and we need to start normalizing things. We need hold on for a second. Good night, Yvette. Good night, Yvette.
Good
Thank you for
night.
stopping by, baby. She's got to teach school. She got to teach school in the morning, and I'm grateful that she was able to come by. And we got to start normalizing things. You know, and that is just to recognize. And I do not want to open any wounds, but it's imperative to understand that part of that resiliency that you have, part of that fight that you have, part of that empathy for children that are not yours, to fight for a school that they don't have, is because you know what it feels like not to have anybody champion you.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And when you know what that feels like,
yes.
when you know that feels like, it can go one of two ways. Well, fuck that bitch, because that didn't happen to me, so I don't give a fuck about her. Or you realize the injustices, you realize the emotional toll that it's taking, and you step in and you do something about it.
Yes, ma'am.
And Autumn, growing up to be somebody that would have saved you when you were that age is probably one of the greatest achievements that you could have ever made. So congratulate yourself on that, baby. Congratulate yourself on that.
Oh.
You know, Mr. Stevens, what say you?
Well, I had to come in and I've noticed that now that I'm 40, I feel the relationship with my mother changing a little bit on the positive. She still do stuff that I don't like or care about, but I see that she's getting older and I'm getting older too. So I think if somebody has to change, it has to be me to initiate it, and I can't change her because my mother, she is always like, she's the type of person where if there's a fire, she'll run toward it, as opposed I will run away from it. And that is the type of person, like when she has been through some traumatic experiences, and it was because of that attitude that she has been through those traumatic experiences. And I was thinking about a little session that you had in the fall when we were talking about parents, and you were saying you work around some of their flaws, your parents' flaws, and you do better. And me and my mother, we have not always had the best relationships. I mean, really, you try to go to therapy, you try to learn the woo-saw, and she still know how to find ways to get you irritated and yell at you and cut, and even in some places cuss her ass out. Forget my French, but she's like that. She's like that, and I just have to, and I pray for her, and I just realize in some aspects that she has her own journey to run, and I don't like the fact that she talks to my cousin that tried to get me to go to jail. But you know what? Whatever is going to be is going to be. All I have to do is go my own way, and just wish the best for my mother and just try to love her as possible. She's a Virgo woman. And some were Virgo women. If you know anything, Miss Ronnie, they can be difficult, very difficult.
Sarah, honey, let me tell you something. Sarah don't say too much, but when she does, God damn it, mama is on the money. She's on that money. Honey, the lady Sarah says she knows what buttons to push because she's the ones that installed them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was deep. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah. But I want to say that as I get older, I don't want to argue with her. I really don't want to argue because, she's getting older, and if you yell at somebody or if she yells at me, she could, God forbid, she could fall out or something. And so I just try to, if she say something like I'll just tell you this little story and then I'll go. But I remember last year when my car was down or whatever, I was hanging out with a buddy, my yoga teacher. So she when I came in the house, he accidentally knocked on my door, and I told him, don't do that. I don't want none of my friends meet my mother. So he accidentally almost knocked on the door, and so they didn't meet each other. So I get back or whatever. This is my birthday week, mind you. She said, You went somewhere with a white man and you didn't even tell me where you were going. You are gullible. You are gullible. I'm like, Ma, really? Really? How you it was my birthday weekend and you finding a way to crap on that. It's like it sounds like she's jealous or something. But
Michael,
but
at a
it,
certain point, Michael, at a certain point, and the thing is that the relationships between mother and child is never going to be easy. It's never going to be easy. But at a certain point, Michael, at a certain point, we let me go about it this way. You are not responsible. You are not responsible for whatever damage was done when you were a child. But now as an adult, we get to decide what we will be triggered on. We get to decide what we will define our worth on. We get to decide that. And yes, mommy, you're my mother. But being my mother does not mean that because I'm your child, that I have got to be less than who I am in order to make you comfortable.
Wow.
I'm just going to say that. I'm just going to say that.
Wow.
My mom and I love my mom and I love my mother. Let me say that again. And I love my mom. When she wilds out as a daughter, she taught me well. Because Ma will be wilding out and I'll just stand there. Yeah. You hear me? Everyone hears you. Yep. Everyone hears you.
Or you know what I do? You know what I do sometimes? Excuse me, sorry for interrupting you, Miss Ronnie. But like when instead of arguing with her, I pull out my phone and I record her. I'm like, and I show her, and I show her. I said, "This is what you look like," and she leave me alone after that.
Sometimes people need that mirror.
Yeah.
But you all, I've been on here for about an hour.
It's time for me to say good night.
Yeah, and
you know what? Me too, because it's 12:23 where I am.
I want to thank you so much. I hope that we were able to clear some emotional baggage so we can sleep a little better. Because that's again, not about reopening wounds. It wasn't anything about that. It was just to recognize what is ours.
Yes.
And what is not.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that was it.
I got it.
Good night. Good night.
All right, Michael.
Wait a minute. You followed me on the TikTok, correct? I saw somebody.
I did. I just thought I'd be trying to find out when you going on live, like they're trying to catch you.
You know what, baby? I'm gonna tell you right now. For right now, I think I've done 2 lives on the TikTok, and I get so much feedback. So you would think, oh, I'm gonna do that more. I can't leave my YouTubers behind. I can't. You all were rocking with me. I mean, it would be easy for me. Okay, y'all, I'm gonna be on TikTok. We got Kiki, Kiki Laws. We got T Jones, we remember Sweetie Pie, Really Pie. You know what I'm saying? I can't just abandon this format and stuff. Yeah. And I put in a day and a half today. So, and it's time. I'm tired. I cannot deliver what I delivered tonight on TikTok. Now I'll save it. And I'm glad because I can get a transcript and it will help me a little bit more. I can, and maybe I'll do it on TikTok, but I can't do what I did tonight again on TikTok. Baby, this one wore me out. This one wore me out.
Well, this one was deep. This was a deep one. I
was feeling the weight. Because how do I want to say it? It felt like I was using the words that other people didn't know how to say. You know what I'm saying? And so I was like, okay, just keep going with it, Ronnie. Just keep going with it. You know what I'm saying? And it was just, and it was heavy. It was heavy. you know.
Yeah, it
And so,
was.
baby, I'm gonna go in that shower. I'm gonna rinse this reading off me.
Yes, indeed.
I'm
Yes,
gonna go,
indeed.
maybe, because she gotta wake up tomorrow at 5 in the morning. So if there's content tomorrow, there's a trick to it. Let me tell you that. That's a good. I knew what was going on, so I was like, let me go and say hi to the tarot bites, because baby, this consistency for this social media game is a joke, girl. It's a job that you don't get paid for yet.
Okay.
There we
Okay.
are. But there we
Okay.
are. But you all listen. The lady Sarah, Mr. Stevens, Ms. Yvette, and I saw people coming and going. I was doing the media aspects, so I didn't know who was coming and going. Y'all, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I hope that this brought some type of healing. And baby, we move forward. We move
Yes.
forward. I did not want Mother's Day to go by and me not recognizing the fact that not everybody has a hallmark moment for their mom. And I don't want people walking around feeling like they need to feel guilty for that, because it happens everywhere. It happens to us all. All
Yes.
right, baby. Thank
All
you
right.
so much. You stay blessed. You stay blessed. And with all that, you all, remember your assignment. Your assignment is your alignment. And when shit gets too heavy, we close our eyes and we ask the universe what? To show me how good it can be. Show me how good it can be. Y'all, thank you so much. Y'all stay blessed. I'll be back. Bye.